We had been married for decades since childhood, and it wasn't until his death that I learned. He liked my best friend. Every time he came close to me, bringing me milk tea and snacks, it was to give her a portion too. He never expressed this affection to anyone, silently watching as she started dating someone else. When he saw her deeply kiss another man, he smiled and asked me if I wanted to be with him. Later, we had a daughter and lived a very happy life. But on his deathbed, he tightly held my hand. Lamona, if I could live my life over, would you help me pursue Jane? The biggest regret of my life is missing out on her and choosing you out of spite. What I had once thought was mutual love was, in fact, him settling for me. I coldly withdrew my hand, watching his heartbeat stop. Fine. If we were to live again, I'll let you go. Chapter 1. When I opened my eyes again, the unpleasant smell of disinfectant still lingered in my nose, but my surroundings had completely changed. I wasn't in the hospital waiting for the doctor to issue a death certificate. I was slumped over a desk, just waking up from a nap. Suddenly, my left shoulder was hit hard. Someone patted me roughly. Instinctively, I turned around and met Victor's smiling eyes. What are you daydreaming about? Class is about to start. Didn't sleep well last night? I bought you some coffee. Then came a thud, the sound of a bottled coffee being set heavily on the desk. As if meant to draw someone's attention, our eyes met. Clear, bright eyes that seemed to hold no one else but me. In my previous life, it was those serious, focused eyes that deceived me into giving him all my love. Remembering his dying words, I only felt irony. I don't like coffee. Now that I think about it, the signs were all there. The one who liked coffee was Jane, never me. Victor froze, as if he couldn't understand why I, who always greeted him with a smile, would refuse so bluntly. He gave a small, awkward smile, watching me carefully. Then, what do you like? I can buy it for you after class. My deskmate and so-called best friend Jane glanced at me. Then she flashed Victor a sweet smile. It's fine. I like coffee. Lamona, you can give it to me. As soon as she spoke, Victor seemed to snap back to his senses and handed her the other bottle he'd been clutching. This one is for you. A rare blush crept up the handsome boy's face. I took in their little exchange quietly. The coffee on my desk, I didn't touch it. I passed it to Jane. She beamed at me, winking playfully. Thanks to you again, Lamona. But later that afternoon, when I went to wash my hands, I overheard her talking to other girls from behind the bathroom wall. Do you know? She's so pretentious. Is she showing off that Victor cares about her? If it weren't for liking Victor, who would be friends with her? Chapter 2. To escape the twisted triangle between us. I went to the homeroom teacher and asked for a new seat. She was staring at my falling grades with a frown. Lamona, I know you're a good kid, but you can't just focus on making friends and ignore your studies. You've dropped 20 places this semester. You used to be in the top 5. How will you get into a good university like this? MS. Son, that's actually why I came to see you. I said, I want to change my seat. She looked at me in surprise. After all, I was the one who had asked to sit with Jane in the first place, saying I could help her study. Her grades had improved a lot since then. Mine, however, had started to slip as I got more and more distracted. In my previous life, that same lack of focus led me to end up at a mediocre 211 university, missing out on the top school I could have made it into. Now that I had a second chance at life, I wanted to fix those regrets. When I walked out of the teacher's office, I was surprised to find Victor waiting outside. Since we'd started high school, he'd grown taller. The awkward boy had become a handsome young man. To meet his gaze, I had to tilt my head upward. He pressed his lips together, looking a little uneasy. Then something warm bumped against my arm. I looked down. It was a carton of low-fat, high-calcium milk. I couldn't help but smile. So, he did know what I liked. He just never bothered to give it to me before. This time, I accepted it. Seeing me smile, his tense expression softened. Just as he was about to say something, I spoke first. I asked MS. Son, to switch your seat with Jane's. I know you like her. Take the chance. Victor froze. No trace of happiness appeared on his face. I gave him one last look and brushed past him. Chapter 3. MS. Son worked fast. By the end of physics class, the seats were changed. What I didn't expect was to become deskmates with Joshua, the top student in both the class and the entire grade. He was quiet, barely spoke except when answering questions. When he heard someone would finally take the empty seat beside him, his pen paused for a second over his scratch paper. Then he lifted his gaze, meeting mine briefly. Behind his glasses, his dark eyes were as still as dead water, calm, unreadable. That day, for the first time in a long while, I managed to focus through an entire day of lessons. Without those two beside me, even the air felt cleaner. After evening self-study, I was absorbed in my notes when a shadow fell over my desk. It was Victor. He called my name the same way he always had, too casually, too familiar. Lamona, let's go home together. His voice carried a faint excitement. He must have been thrilled to be sitting beside the girl he liked. I didn't even lift my head. No, you go ahead. I'll stay a bit longer. But he didn't move, pretending not to notice the distance in my tone. Blocking the light above, he leaned one hand on my desk. His voice still annoyingly warm. Studying a few more minutes won't make much difference. It's safer to go home early. If I leave first, who's going to walk you home? He bent closer, his breath warm in the narrow space between us. I looked up and met his smiling eyes. Confident, teasing, certain I would agree as always. But beyond his shoulder, I saw Jane. Her face was twisted for a moment before she smoothed it over, forcing a sweet smile. I curved my lips too, though my smile was anything but kind. That's none of your business. Don't you like Jane? Walk her home. You're blocking the light. Victor's face went pale. His fingers, gripping the edge of my desk, turned red from the pressure. His breathing quickened, lashes trembling, hit right where it hurt. He snapped. Lamona, are you still mad about the coffee thing? That's ridiculous. Who said I like Jane? The hallway buzzed with students passing by. Curious eyes darted between us. After a tense pause, my new deskmate suddenly spoke. Victor, no one cares who you like. Could you shut up? You're being loud. His tone was icy, sharp as broken glass. The air froze for several seconds. Then someone snorted with laughter. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. As murmurs reached his ears, Victor finally came to his senses, steadying a visibly shaken Jane beside him. Before leaving, he gave me a long look. Then, under half the class's gaze, took Jane by the wrist and strode away. Chapter 4. After that day, our trio officially broke apart. Victor started bringing breakfast, coffee, and snacks only for her. They went to and from school together, no longer needing me as the awkward third wheel between them. Their relationship grew closer and more intimate by the day. To avoid seeing them, I began waking up earlier, studying later, stretching every minute I could for schoolwork. By the end of the second semester of sophomore year, I finally climbed back up, 5th in class, 20th in the entire grade. When I looked at the report card in my hand, a sense of calm washed over me. The feeling of taking control of my own destiny again. My eyes moved to the top of the list. The same name stood unshaken. As always, Joshua, the top student everyone admired but could never surpass. His grades were perfect across all subjects. He barely lost a single point on objective questions. He was like a finely tuned machine, precise, emotionless, never wrong. I stared at my weak physics score and, for the first time, felt a genuine urge to ask for his help. When I turned my head, I found him gazing out the window, lost in thought. Following his line of sight, I saw the orange-red glow of sunset spilling across drifting clouds. Sensing my stare, he glanced at me briefly. What is it? Though phrased like a question, his voice was as flat as a statement. Can I ask you about a few science problems? His eyes dropped to the test paper on my desk. You even got the giveaway questions wrong. You really think I can help you? There was no mockery in his tone, just plain fact. Yet, he still reached out, picked up my paper, and began explaining formulas with a pencil. His words were concise but clear, his tone steady and calm, like the fading sunlight outside the window, quietly softening everything it touched. When he finished, he handed the paper back to me. As I took it, he looked straight into my eyes, those dark, bottomless eyes revealed nothing. You've made great progress now that you're back on track. Don't fall behind again. I froze for a few seconds, then nodded firmly. In this life, I wouldn't get trapped in their love drama ever again, and I would never, ever fall back. Chapter 5. That night, there weren't any dark clouds, yet rain began to fall, sudden and sharp. Joshua didn't have an umbrella. I did, so I offered to walk him to the bus stop. He looked at me for a few seconds. My car's coming. I can give you a ride instead. His tone was calm, distant as ever, keeping everyone at arm's length. But somehow, I didn't think he was as unapproachable as people said. He was tall, and it was hard for me to hold the umbrella high enough. He noticed my awkward struggle and reached out with his slender fingers, grasping the handle. I'll hold it. The umbrella was small. We walked side by side in silence, but I could feel it. It was tilted toward me. Lamona! Through the pouring rain, someone called my name. It was a voice I should have known better than anyone. We had shared decades together in my previous life. And yet, hearing it now, it felt so unfamiliar. I didn't want to get tangled with Victor again. I kept walking. Joshua glanced at me, casual but perceptive. I remember you two used to be close. That surprised me. Didn't expect you to know that. You're always buried in your books. The corner of his lips twitched slightly. It was the first time I'd ever seen such a vivid expression on his face. I'm studying, not blind or deaf. Victor talks so loud. It's hard not to notice. Just as he said that, someone stepped in front of us. Victor. No umbrella, soaked to the bone. Eyes red and half squinted against the rain. Yet he stared at me stubbornly. I didn't bring an umbrella either. Why do you get to walk him? We've known each other for years. Does that mean nothing compared to just a few months of sitting next to him? 4 months. He had been tangled up in his growing closeness with Jane. I had no objection. Every time he saw me, he'd look away like I was a stranger. So what right did he have to question me now? I met his gaze calmly. Did you really think I didn't know why you got close to me? He froze, startled, maybe even lost in thought. We took that chance to walk around him and leave. Yes, I should have realized it long ago, even in my past life. His sudden kindness wasn't because our parents were friends. It was because the new transfer student, Jane, happened to be close to me. Jane was beautiful, gentle, but daring beneath her soft voice. Under her uniform, she'd wear pretty floral skirts. On her second day, she greeted me first, saying she wanted to be friends. Her eyes sparkled like water, capable of drowning anyone she looked at. And just like that, we became friends, ate together, took gym class side by side. Not long after, Victor, who was in our class, started getting close to me too. We used to barely exchange greetings, but after Jane came, he suddenly acted like we were close. The friend I trusted had hidden motives. The affection I thought was mine was just a trick. His little act to get closer to her. The rain grew heavier. The car that came for Joshua stopped at the school gate. He held the umbrella, opened the door with one hand, and tilted his chin toward me. Get in. I didn't hesitate and gave him my address. In less than 10 minutes, we arrived at my house. Just as I was about to get out, Joshua spoke again. His eyes were dark, unreadable. When the new semester starts, I won't be coming back. Study hard. If you keep slipping, no one will ever respect you. His words blended with the hum of the engine. Raindrops drummed against the umbrella, and only later did it hit me. People never know when it's the last time they'll see someone. Chapter 6. That short summer break, I barely set foot outside. Every morning when I opened my eyes, it was straight to studying. Science had always been my weakness. I went over the textbooks again and again, practiced problem sets, copied down my mistakes, and learned to apply the same logic in new situations. Time was slipping away. Senior year was right around the corner. There was no room for error. Sometimes, I'd still get messages from Victor. I had already blocked his number and every way he could reach me, but he bought a new phone number. I didn't understand why he was so persistent. He didn't like me, so why waste his time? It didn't take me long to figure it out. Victor liked Jane, but he also enjoyed the way I quietly admired him, the way my eyes used to follow him. He wanted both, the thrill of being adored, and the chase after his so-called goddess. He wanted it all, and he played it perfectly. I blocked his new number again and marked his texts as spam. And so, the summer passed in peace at last. When the new semester began, our class moved to a different room. The seat beside me was empty now. Just as Joshua had said, he never came back. Coming from a wealthy family, he probably transferred to another school, or maybe went abroad to study. Soon, I was assigned a new desk mate, the second top student in class, a quiet and bright girl named Alicia. She excelled in science but struggled with English. We complemented each other perfectly, often discussing problems after class. Gradually, we became close. Under her guidance, my physics grades improved steadily. With my help, her English scores rose by 10 points. In our first mock exam, she ranked first, and I came second. Our scores separated by only 5 points. She joked, "Good thing Joshua's gone, otherwise, who could possibly beat him?" Her words brought back the image of him, focused and calm, working through a problem, and that one line he said, "Study hard." It lit a fire in me. I swore I'd become the new top student, the next study god, even surpassing his record. While I buried myself in books, I occasionally heard gossip about Jane. Maybe it was because I no longer helped her review or highlight key points. Her grades had fallen again, back to the bottom of the class. While everyone else was racing against time to catch up, she devoted all her energy to Victor instead. And then, one morning, with only 100 days left before the college entrance exam, in the quiet, echoing hallway, Jane confessed to Victor. Chapter 7. It wasn't even time for morning self-study yet, and the classroom was still nearly empty. I sat by the door. From the hallway came a girl's voice, soft, shy, trembling with anticipation, not loud, but clear enough for me to hear. "Victor, I like you. I know you care more about Lamona, but I still want to fight for myself. Can you be my boyfriend?" Silence followed. I was halfway through a calculus problem, scribbling quickly across my scratch paper. Then Victor's hesitant voice came. "The college entrance exam's coming soon. We should focus on studying when we're in the same city later." "Maybe we can." Jane interrupted him. "Victor, there's a boy from the next class chasing after me. If you turn me down, that's fine, I can just say yes to him." There was a brief pause, a faint stalemate in the air. Then Victor's voice, low and restrained. "Fine, I'll say yes." I finished the last equation and checked the answer key. Perfect, every step matched. Alicia leaned over with a gasp of amazement. "Wow, you're so fast. That took you what, 10 minutes? She grinned. "Whoever ranks first in the next exam treats the other to lunch. Deal?" Before I could reply, my test paper was snatched away. Jane stood there, all sweetness and smiles. "Wow, top student, so impressive. Oh, and I've got great news. We're together now." She lifted her hand, fingers intertwined with Victor's, her smile a deliberate taunt. "Thanks for giving us the time to get close." Alicia just stared, dumbfounded. She'd never seen anyone so bold, publicly announcing a relationship in front of the whole class. This was senior year. The college entrance exam was just around the corner. Did she really not understand which was more important, love or the future? Both of them looked at me then, like they were waiting to see me break. But I stayed calm. I even smiled. "Really? That's great. You two make such a perfect match. I always thought you would." Victor's expression froze. The faint smile on his lips disappeared. "Lamona," he said coldly. "Jane's telling you out of kindness. What kind of attitude is that?" He watched me closely, as if trying to read what I truly felt. I chuckled. "We're just classmates." "Victor, what kind of attitude should I have?" Then, almost teasing, I added, "I'm not your parent, you don't need my approval." The class bell rang. Students began to file in, and the two of them awkwardly returned to their seats. Alicia whispered under her breath, "What's wrong with those two? It's like they're bragging to you on purpose." I shrugged. Who knows? In the next mock exam, I finally surpassed Alicia, ranked first in class and third in the entire school. There was still a gap between me and the former top student, Joshua, but I was sure that one day, I'd beat his record. The exams came one after another, leaving no time for heartbreak or reflection. You just packed your bag, faced the next challenge, and kept going. My stack of scribbled notes grew taller and taller. Blank papers fewer and fewer. Every mistake I'd ever made was reworked, understood, mastered. Every problem on my error sheet became second nature. In this second chance at life, I was finally fighting for myself. By the final mock exam, I had climbed to the very top, first in the entire school. My total score broke 700. I had become the new Joshua. Our homeroom teacher, Mr. Sun, looked at me with pride. With that kind of drive, you'll do great in the college entrance exam. You know, when Joshua left, he said he believed you'd make it. I widened my eyes in surprise. Joshua mentioned me? Of course, Mr. Sun said with a small smile. He told me you and Alicia balance each other out. Put you two together, and you'd both improve. Then he sighed softly. If he hadn't gone abroad, he probably would have been the top student in the entire city. A warmth spread through my chest, followed by an indescribable sense of melancholy. If Joshua hadn't gone abroad, we might have been great rivals. With the college entrance exam approaching, I pushed myself even harder. But just when everything seemed to be lining up perfectly, a shocking rumor spread through the school. Jane was pregnant. Chapter 8. That piece of gossip became the only spice in our monotonous study routine. A single spark that set off a storm. Within days, the entire school knew. It started when Jane's furious parents stormed into our classroom. Jane's mother marched straight to the podium, her voice booming. "Who is Victor?" Whispers rippled through the class. The physics teacher stood frozen, confused. Jane's seat was empty. Everyone's eyes turned, inevitably, toward her deskmate. Victor. He had no choice but to stand up. "It's me." His eyes darted around, guilt flickering across his face, as though he'd been caught committing some unspeakable sin. Jane's father lunged forward without a word and slapped him. The crack echoed down the hallway, sharp and heavy. Victor's cheek reddened instantly, a bright handprint blooming across it. Before he could even turn back, a medical test result was slapped onto his desk. Jane's father was trembling with fury, pointing a shaking finger at him. "You filthy brat. You've ruined her life. She's still a child, not even of age. How could you trick her into doing something like that?" The man was trembling with rage, nearly shaking with it. The report on the desk bore the letters HCG. The numbers circled, 4 weeks. Victor stared at it, disbelief spreading across his pale face. "WH, what? That's impossible. I didn't. I never even." Smack! Another slap. Seeing him stammer and deny, Jane's mother lost control too. She rushed forward and struck him again. Now both sides of his face were swollen, the marks uneven but clear. The once handsome boy now looked grotesque, almost unrecognizable. Soon the homeroom teacher and the dean arrived, hurrying to usher Jane's parents out of the room. Victor followed, his neck red to the collar, unable to lift his head. The same boy who had once been so confident, so dazzling in my memory, now looked small, pitiful, and vulgar. So this was the truth behind that shining facade. Nothing but ordinary, ugly decay. Chapter 9. At such a critical time, right before the college entrance exam, Victor stopped coming to school. Maybe he couldn't bear the stares and whispers. Maybe guilt finally caught up to him. Either way, it had nothing to do with me. All that mattered was the final sprint. I kept to my routine, calm and steady. One night, 7 days before the exam, on my way home from evening study, I saw Victor again. He stood in the middle of the road, blocking my path. It was summer, yet he was wearing long sleeves. There was a bruise near his lip, dark and ugly. I frowned, ready to walk past him. But his hoarse voice stopped me. "Lamona, whether you believe me or not, I didn't do it. Yes, I was with her, but we never went that far. She was seeing someone else at the same time. She didn't protect herself, and when things went wrong, she told her parents it was me." "Lamona, the report's been checked. Everything I said is true. Please, believe me." The boy who once stood tall now looked broken. His eyes were bloodshot, the skin beneath them bruised and sunken. He'd lost so much weight he was almost unrecognizable. He looked at me, pleading, desperate for belief. But what did it matter whether I believed him or not? Every choice you made led you here, I said quietly. No one else to blame. True or false, it's still your life. It has nothing to do with me. The last light in his eyes dimmed quickly. But why did he look so disappointed? Wasn't this exactly what he had wanted in our past life? A world without me standing in his way? For the next few days, I changed my route home, just to avoid him. Then came the day of the college entrance exam. My parents drove me to the test center, perhaps because of the time I'd lived before. My memories of the previous life's exam questions were completely blank, as if they'd been wiped clean. When the papers were handed out, I dove in, pen racing across the pages. The one who chases the light will always find a bright path ahead. When the final subject ended, I exhaled deeply. At last, everything had come to an end. Chapter 10. The day the exam results came out, I logged into the score-checking website. When I saw the scores were temporarily hidden, I already had a feeling. Moments later, offers poured in, from universities I'd never dared to dream of in my previous life. In the end, I chose the prestigious Hua University, seeing the pride and joy on my parents' faces. I knew everything had been worth it. When the rankings were officially released, I could hardly believe it. I had thought I'd be first in the city, but the number beside my name in the provincial ranking made me freeze in disbelief. First place, the top score in the entire province, a position higher than even Joshua's. His name surfaced in my mind like a ripple. If we were still in touch, I would have loved to brag a little about this thrilling news. I wondered where he was now. Was he doing well? My phone rang. It was Mr. Sun, our homeroom teacher. Her voice was bright with joy and pride. Lamona, congratulations on ranking first in the province. Could you come to school for a bit? There's something I need to give you. When I arrived, I went straight to her office. She asked me about my university choices, chatted warmly for a while, then handed me an envelope. This is from Joshua. He asked me to give it to you after your college entrance exam. The day's getting late, head home soon. It's hard to describe how I felt. Holding that pale lavender envelope, my thoughts drifted back to last summer. Joshua hadn't brought spare pen refills that day and asked to borrow mine. All my pens were the same kind, violet casings with tiny floral patterns. He'd asked, "You really like purple, don't you?" I hadn't even looked up, busy memorizing English vocabulary. I just replied casually, It's a beautiful color, don't you think?" Such a simple pen, such a fleeting line. Yet he remembered. I stepped into an empty classroom and broke the wax seal on the envelope. The letter paper inside was edged with violet blossoms. He wrote, "The first time I saw you, you were at the water dispenser. I had a fever that day, and there was no warm water to take my medicine. You shared half a cup of yours with me. I noticed your name tag, Lamona. I thought then, you must really love fruit." He continued, "Every bit of effort in the present is to make peace with the future. I believe you've achieved what you set out to do. The road ahead will be smooth, may your future shine bright." It was such a simple letter, 3 pages of neat handwriting, and not a single word about himself. Even so, holding that weighty piece of paper, I felt something stir, something bittersweet and unmoored. He wasn't in the class group chat. No one knew how to reach him, and the only link between us now was this letter in my hands. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. Without thinking, I picked up. A slightly distorted voice came through the line. "Joshua, I heard you ranked first in the province," he said, his voice warm and clear. "I called just to congratulate you." I was still a little stunned. "Joshua? Where are you?" "I got into a university in London," he said, already settling in. "What about you? Did you choose Hua University like you said you would?" "Yes," I replied, smiling. "You have a great memory, Joshua." We'd only shared a desk for half a semester, yet he remembered even the casual promises I'd made back then. Maybe it was just his good memory, but somehow, that made it even more moving. I don't recall what else we talked about that day, only that before hanging up. His voice carried a faint smile through the static. "A brilliant future awaits you." Top Scholar. Chapter 11. To celebrate, the school hung a banner with my name on it. Outside, on the railings by the gate, they'd posted my photo alongside my admission letter. When my parents went grocery shopping, they deliberately took a detour to pass by the school, snapping pictures and proudly sending them to the family chat. Next to my photo was the second-ranked student in our grade, my desk mate, Alicia. In the photos, we both looked so young, so full of life. That summer was the most relaxed I'd felt since being reborn. Victor didn't bother me again, but during dinner one evening, I overheard my parents talking about him. He got into a second-tier university. That doesn't make sense. With his grades, he should have at least made it into a top-tier 211 school. My mom sighed. I heard he was dating someone, got caught up in some messy scandal. His girlfriend got pregnant, and the whole school thought he was the one who did it. But turns out, he took the blame for some guy from another school. His mom told me he plans to transfer and repeat the year. I didn't say a word the entire time, just quietly enjoyed my meal. Dad's cooking had always been my favorite, and I knew once college started, I wouldn't taste it for a long time. Then my mom suddenly asked, "Sweetheart, didn't you and Victor used to be close? You mentioned him a lot before. How come you two don't talk anymore?" I answered honestly. He made a big show of dating someone, and I didn't want distractions to hurt my grades, so I cut contact early on. My dad nodded approvingly. "You did the right thing. That boy didn't look like any good news to me." A memory flashed in my mind. In my previous life, when Victor and I got engaged, my father had sighed all night. That evening, he sat me down for a long talk, asking what kind of person Victor truly was. Back then, I thought it was because he couldn't bear to see me leave. Now I realize, he just saw people more clearly than I ever did. At the end of August, my parents accompanied me to university registration. The line at the ticket gate was long, and in the queue beside mine, I saw Victor and Jane. They were carrying a large suitcase, holding hands, looking affectionate again, like a picture-perfect couple. I turned my head away, pretending not to notice, but Jane's voice carried across the station. "What a coincidence. Top student Lamona. You're registering for college too?" Victor, upon seeing me, quietly let go of her hand. His face flushed red, and he turned away. I merely responded with a flat mem, offering no more. My dad, always polite, smiled and said, "Victor, didn't you say you were going to repeat the year? Why are you heading to City A?" Victor had no choice but to greet my parents. His fingers fidgeted against his pants seam. I figured repeating wouldn't help much, so I decided to go ahead and enroll. "Uncle, Auntie, Lamona, it's been a while." His eyes met mine, filled with emotions I didn't understand, nor care to. Talking to a fool only makes you foolish. I ignored him. He made small talk with my dad, while Jane stood beside him, watching hopefully, as if waiting for him to introduce her. But he never did, not once. "Victor, wasn't this the girl you adored? The one you were so desperate to be with? Then why, when she's standing right beside you, do you still look so uncertain?" He was far more complicated and pathetic than I had imagined, torn between lusting after Jane's youthful beauty and despising her for the very things that made her that way. His kind of love, so cheap, so hypocritical, was utterly disgusting. Chapter 12. For the 4 years of university, I worked hard to excel. I participated in activities, focused on learning, and worked on experiments. Whether in social relationships or academics, I aimed for perfection. I made many like-minded friends. I also earned the admiration of my professors, due to consistently ranking at the top in both midterms and finals, and receiving full points for club activities. I successfully secured a spot for graduate school through recommendation. I decided to pursue my master's at the same university and chose the same advisor from my undergraduate years. One day, while I was in the cafeteria, I saw that familiar yet unfamiliar face. He wasn't as thin anymore. His condition seemed to have improved. It was like he had returned to the sincere version of himself from those youthful days. He sat down in front of me with his tray. Gone was the self-doubt from 4 years ago at the high-speed rail station. His eyes sparkled with energy, Lamona, you're really here for graduate school. I got into the physics department as well. Can you add me back on your contacts? He looked at me with hope, nearly overflowing from his eyes. But in his gaze, I saw that familiar determination to get what he wanted. I have a good memory. In our past life, Victor only called me Lamona after we got married. In this life, he had been so focused on love and relationships that his physics grades were poor, but in our previous life, he scored almost perfect marks in physics in every major exam. Same tone, same way of calling me. It made me realize that the person in front of me was the same as he had been in my past life. I'm sorry, we're not really familiar. I had finished my meal and stood up, ready to leave, but he stopped me, lowering his voice. I broke up with her. Lamona, after everything, I still think you're better. You're the one who's right for me. I know you've been reborn too. Can you forgive me? Can you give me another chance? So many men are just the same. They know how to calculate, to measure. It's always about what benefits them the most. Victor knew that beautiful women were great, but for a wife, he needed someone with potential, someone who was his equal. In my past life, I was stable in my career, gentle, and well-mannered. I took good care of him and our daughter. But what did that mean? Was I given a second chance in this life only to waste it, to repeat the same mistakes? I've never hated you, but I can't say I've forgiven you either. I looked at him calmly. In my world, you're nothing but a passerby, someone I couldn't even call a friend. Do you want me to spell it out for you? Everything you did. Everyone looked down on you, including me. Instead of begging for my forgiveness, prove to others that your choice, the one you've been so obsessed with, was the right one. He was speechless. For the next 3 years of graduate school, I never saw him again. I completed my master's smoothly. Through my professor's recommendation, I joined a renowned research institute. The institute offered housing subsidies. After completing my probation period, my salary was 3 times what it had been in my past life. I knew that education could change one's fate. But it wasn't until I became my true self that I truly understood the importance of the choices we make. Chapter 13. Another year passed. From spring to winter, I returned home for the new year. Here, winter doesn't bring snow, just cold rain. I got out of the car, holding my umbrella, and was about to grab my luggage from the trunk, but a long hand reached ahead of me. I looked up, surprised to see Joshua, whom I hadn't seen in years. The youthfulness had completely faded from his face. His nose was high, his features sharp and cold. I just visited son teacher's house for the new year. I happened to pass by here and saw you. Rain dripped onto his shoulders. I quickly raised my umbrella higher. He placed the suitcase down steadily on the ground, offering a faint smile. It's been so long. Don't you have anything to say to me? I snapped out of it. You're back in the country? What are you doing now? I'm a doctor. Been working for a year now. That's great, I said sincerely. Such a noble profession. He smiled. What about you? I work at a research institute. Pretty stable. He pulled my suitcase all the way to the building entrance. The old apartment complex didn't have an elevator. I closed the umbrella and prepared to take the suitcase from him. I'll carry it upstairs for you. How about you invite me to sit for a while? I was surprised but didn't refuse. After knocking, my mom saw his face behind me and her voice immediately lifted in excitement. Ah, daughter, you brought a boyfriend home? When did this happen? Why didn't you tell me? I quickly explained. This is a high school classmate of mine. He's just helping me with my luggage. Don't misunderstand, Mom. She smiled warmly and nodded, greeting him with more enthusiasm than she did for me. I shook my head helplessly. Chapter 14. Joshua was working as a doctor in City A. I was working at a research institute in City A. One day, my mom mysteriously came to my room. That's a fine young man. His job is great. Your dad and I are happy with him. Since you're both in City A, maybe you could develop something. Oh, by the way, Victor got married last year. He married the boss's daughter. Not that girl from the high-speed rail station. You know, your dad was right. He's got quite the purpose in life. I couldn't deny it. Someone with clear goals usually doesn't end up in a bad place. But my heart was small. His last words in my past life, I couldn't bear to see him live well. It felt like fate was listening to my thoughts. His gossip resurfaced, stirring up even more waves. Quickly, Victor's name once again spread through our high school alumni group, which had been dormant for so long. The gossip came from a good friend of his, someone still in touch with Victor. The boss's daughter had returned early from a business trip, only to find Victor bringing someone else home and cheating. She immediately hired a lawyer, gathered evidence, had him tested at the hospital, and forced him out with nothing. Luckily, she didn't catch any diseases. The company fired him, and he was left with enormous debt. The good friend also revealed that the mistress he brought home was none other than Jane. It was too dramatic, too explosive. But this was reality, this was human nature. I saw his name again, this time in a social news report. He was accused of maliciously spreading a disease. Even though the video was heavily blurred, I still recognized him instantly. The caption read, "Suspect Victor charged with spreading a malignant disease, sentenced to 4 years in prison and fined 50,000 yuan." In this life, this was what he had been chasing: to decay, to rot, to become pitiful. I looked out the window at the clear sky and smiled, genuinely happy. Chapter 15, Joshua's Epilogue, The Farewell Letter. In the second semester of sophomore year, I became desk mates with that girl. I remember her name, Lamona. When I say it, it reminds me of the juice I love to drink. She was very smart, but her heart wasn't always on her studies. I often caught her gaze, and it was always fixed on someone else. Victor, he was the star of our year, great at basketball and, in all fairness, quite good-looking. It was obvious she liked him. You could tell just by looking at her. I quietly took out new scratch paper and redid the calculations for the easy bonus question I had missed. I thought that aside from that half cup of hot water she shared with me, we wouldn't have any real interaction. But then, one day, she became my desk mate. Her eyes no longer lingered on Victor or Jane. She finally started to study seriously. Her English was excellent. Whenever she answered questions, it was always smooth and fluent. But physics and math were where she struggled. After one exam, she asked me about a problem. It was a typical question, too simple to be difficult. In the past, I would have been too lazy to write out the formulas. But when I saw her eyes, filled with a genuine thirst for knowledge, I ended up explaining it step by step. She caught on quickly. From that point on, she often asked me questions. For some reason, I found myself enjoying watching her progress. I even hoped that one day she might surpass me. Step by step, her improvement grew more and more noticeable. As her teacher, I was genuinely happy. But time is always fleeting. With sophomore year almost over, my parents started discussing the possibility of me studying abroad. I thought about her delicate, beautiful face. For the first time, I felt reluctant to leave high school, but fortune seemed to be on my side. The day after the final exams, it rained. I had an umbrella, but it was buried at the very bottom of my bag. When she asked, I didn't hesitate to tell my first lie. I didn't bring an umbrella. She was kind-hearted. Of course, she offered to walk me home. In return, I had the driver take her home. As she got out of the car, I glanced at her one last time. I knew she would do well in life, get into the university she wanted, and find happiness. I won't be coming back after the break. Study hard, and if you fall behind again, no one will respect you. I wished for her not to be blinded by small things, for her future to be as bright as she deserved. My TOEFL score was decent, 108. I applied to the university my father had attended. Both of my parents were doctors, and I took pride in following in their footsteps. The application process went smoothly, and I'd soon be able to go abroad. The dream was within reach, but I still hesitated. That night, I couldn't sleep. I spent hours, writing and rewriting, destroying 3 sheets of paper before finally composing a letter. Your half-semester desk mate, Joshua. Reading this letter is like meeting you in person. It was difficult to write. This was the first letter I'd ever written in my life. I couldn't quite put into words what I felt for her. Was she just a classmate? A friend? Or maybe, was there something else, some deeper feeling? To write this letter, I dug out the wax seal my father had bought during his study abroad days. Finally, I pressed the seal perfectly. I hoped, after she received this letter post-college entrance exams, it would bring her happiness. Time flew by. I was abroad when I received a text from Sun Teacher. She said that Lamona had ranked first in the province and that she would give her the letter the next day. I felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. In that letter, I hadn't mentioned myself once. Would she be able to sense the growing feelings I had for her? Yet, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation, eager to see her expression when she read it. It was 10:30 p.m. in China, 3:30 a.m. in the UK. Sun Teacher texted that she had taken the letter. I stared at my phone in the dark, counting the minutes. 10 minutes, by now. She must have read it. I dialed her number. I hadn't given her my contact details, but I had secretly memorized her number. When she answered, there was surprise in her voice, perhaps even a bit of shock. She had done it. She had become the top scorer in the province. I thought to myself, if I had stayed in China for the exams, I might have been crushed under the pressure. In just a year and a half, she had achieved this. She was truly a genius. I had no idea what our future held. I shouldn't make promises while rushing through life. I told myself that I needed to become a true doctor, and if we ever crossed paths again, I would be at my best. To make sure that day wouldn't be too far off, I had to keep pushing forward. 8 years later, we met again. It wasn't just a coincidence that I was passing by her house. I had heard she was back today, so I waited nearby. I knew it seemed a little deliberate. But sometimes, fate is something you have to chase. The night before I planned to confess, I had a strange yet vivid dream. In the dream, she married someone else and had a daughter. Our next meeting was in a hospital. I was now the head doctor treating her husband, Victor. Years had passed, and she was no longer the person I remembered. She didn't recognize me. With tears in her eyes, she asked how much longer her husband could live. In the dream, I gave the official response. Conservatively speaking, about half a month. Her tears flowed even harder, and I gently pushed the tissue box toward her. There's nothing you can't get through. Look ahead. I woke up. What an absurd dream. How could she marry Victor, a man who was doomed to a short life? No, I would change everything. I ordered a bouquet of flowers and arranged to meet her at a restaurant. When she saw me in a formal suit, she laughed. You're dressed so formally. Well, when you're about to do something important, you can't be anything but formal. In the end, she agreed to go out with me. As expected, I crushed the nightmare before it could even begin.